Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Judith, the 4th chapter. Now the children of Israel that dwelt in Judea heard all that Holofernes, the chief captain of Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, had done to the nations, and after what manner he had spoiled all their temples and brought them to naught. Therefore they were exceedingly afraid of him, and were troubled for Jerusalem, and for the temple of the Lord their God. For they were newly returned from their captivity, and all the people of Judea were lately gathered together, and the vessels, and the altar, and the house were sanctified after the profanation. Now, it doesn't specify exactly what this captivity is that they were newly returned from. All right, but you might assume this might have been in reference to the Babylonian exile, because I believe Achior mentions that in his speech or his message to Holofernes, okay, as something having already occurred. So it says here, which is once again one of those points that scholars try to bring up to say that, oh, you know, how does that link up if Nebuchadnezzar's in power now? But here it's talking about the return of the exile. So as it says here, verse 4, therefore they sent into all the coasts of Samaria and the villages, and to Beth Horon and Belman and Jericho, and to Choba and to Esora, and to the valley of Salem, and possessed themselves beforehand of all the tops of the high mountains, and fortified the villages that were in them, and laid up victuals for the provision of war. So they basically got ready, they got prepared. For their fields were of late reaped, so they had, luckily for them, or blessedly for them, they had just reaped, the harvest, so they could they had enough in store, to basically fill up their storehouses and be good, be prepared. So it says here, also Joachim the high priest, which was in those days in Jerusalem, wrote to them that dwelt in Bethulia and Beto Metham, or Mestham, which is over against Asdraelon, toward the open country near Dothaim, charging them to keep the passages of the hill country, for by them there was an entrance into Judea. So they basically were to guard those passages, because that there was a route that would basically make way into Judea from there, and so they were to guard it. And it was easy to stop them that were to come up, because the passage was straight for 2 men at most. So the passage was small, so it would be a good, easy place to stop the enemy, because only 2 men could go in there at once. And the children of Israel did as Joachim the high priest had commanded, with the ancients of all the people of Israel that dwelt at Jerusalem. Then every man of Israel cried to God with great fervency, and with great vehemency did they humble their souls, both they and their wives and their children and their cattle, and every stranger and hireling, and their servants bought with money, put sackcloth upon their loins. Thus every man and woman and the little children and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the temple, and cast ashes upon their heads, and spread out their sackcloth before the face of the Lord. As they put sackcloth about the altar, also they put sackcloth about the altar. So they were in a very distressed state, and mourning, crying out to the Lord, and cried to the God of Israel with all with one consent, earnestly, that he would not give their children for a prey, and their wives for a spoil, and the cities of their inheritance to destruction, and the sanctuary to profanation and reproach, so that the Lord would deliver them, so these nations wouldn't, take them, right, their children, and defile the temple, and for the nations to rejoice at. So God heard their prayers and looked upon their afflictions, For the people fasted many days in all Judea and Jerusalem before the sanctuary of the Lord Almighty. Then Joachim the high priest and all the priests that stood before the Lord, and they that ministered unto the Lord, had their loins girt with sackcloth, and offered the burnt offerings, or the daily burnt offerings, with the vows and free gifts of the people, and had ashes on their mitres, and cried unto the Lord with all their power, that he would look upon all the house of Israel graciously. And that brings us to the end of the book of Judith, the 4th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rekha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.